Are you saying that the the character that was in the Raimi film, the guy that Norman Osborn, said to him, back to formula right before he killed him?
Yeah, that was him. That was him.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, another positive thing that I love about this film is that they took their time in not simply bringing character development with the characters, like Peter Parker's standing up for others and bringing his humor out right before he really does take the mantle as Spider-Man, but that his costume evolves. I mean, you see it after he first started out with the the red hood and he got the shades on. Then that evolves to the eyepieces and the spandex, and it just and the webbing, which is a trial and error. It's not mastered right off the bat. He tests it out. It fails on a couple of times, and they really elaborated on that. And not only that, and quoting Zam, it was homemade. So I like that it was not. It's believable that a high school student would make it.
Yeah. Also, like, it also adds into the attention to detail that they're doing with like his actual how he acts as Spider-Man. Because when you look at the Raimi movies, it's like there's that one scene where he shoots a web and then he creates a web and then he swings across the building. But after that, he just becomes Spider-Man and he's suddenly this master at all these moves and agility and all that stuff. In this movie, if you notice, he's very sloppy in the way he swings. He's very sloppy in the way he attacks somebody. Like, he learns this stuff over time. And when he was fighting the lizard, he was crawling on the lizard's back and doing all that junk. It's the small things that make it seem more believable and more like the character, which is something I can appreciate as a fan of the comics. They don't have to put in like this huge Easter egg. They can just put something like that in because it at least knows that they know the source material and that he's still young and he's immature and he's brash and he's not going to have access to all of this experience because he learns it over time.
The one thing I didn't really get in the early part of the reboot is it has to do with the gem sequence. Even though I do like that Peter was having fun with Flash and he was being quirky with his comeback lines and sense of humor and that amazing rip Michael Jordan's air jump. I don't know if air, but it was a pretty sweet move. I didn't like the scene afterwards, which is Uncle Ben, Peter in the counselor's office. Uncle Ben comes out and did you Did you humiliate that boy? And Peter pretty much nods. And I'm like, does this have to do with the backboard of or basically his actions with Flash Thompson? Because I did not do that as quote I'm tripping over my words here. Humiliating or harassment or whatever, because unless you count the push when he went to go make the jump for the shot, and I was a bit at loss of words there because I didn't know, was he in trouble because of what he, quote, treated Flash or the basketball backboard or what?
I see what you mean, yeah.
Because in my opinion, it would have made more sense if they went something like the route of Spider-Man, where it's after he's established somewhat that he has some abilities. I mean, he's still learning them, and he gets sick and tired. This is when he has an attitude, and he gets sick and tired of Flash picking on him. So this resorts to a fight, and Peter, from that point, he decides he's just going to dodge him, not physically fight him. And his reflexes kick in. He puts his hand out. Flash makes contact with the palm of his hand, and this causes his hand to break. And Peter's like, I told you I didn't want to fight. Like, he you see remorse there, and then that leads to Aunt and Uncle May at their house saying, they just got a phone call from Flash's parents, and he's in the hospital, and they might sue, and they're chewing out Peter because of that, because they barely have any money to live by. So that would have been a bit more effective or something that seemed more believable, because I failed to see any real connection. I mean, if it's strictly based on the backboard, it would make sense because that's the destruction of property. If it's that, yeah, I can see why. But
it was. I think what happened was it was a combination of both defacing the property in addition to humiliating Flash. But the thing is, it's like the way it went out in the comics is that he got sick and tired of dealing with Flash. So in the Amazing series, he challenged him to a boxing match. And that was willingly. He was just like, you know what, let's just take this outside. And that very much happened sort of like it did in this movie. It was him Peter was essentially abusing his powers. He got tired of it. So, let me humiliate him without even, more or less touching him or physically attacking him. He was just, grabbing the ball from him, and then he just shoved him. In the Raimi film, it was all pure coincidence that he was avoiding all that stuff because it just kicked in, it happened, and then he just randomly punched. But I think they could have done more to elaborate on the humiliation, because it's like, it's like you're just grabbing the ball and you're just throwing it around. I mean, it doesn't seem too much of a humiliation. I mean, especially if you're there was 10 people in that damn gym.
Yeah. And on top of that, I'm somewhat in the middle here with Flash Thompson, quote unquote, developing a friendship with Peter. I mean, I'm aware that in the Spider-Girl universe, Flash Thompson and Peter do become friends, but they're trying to go through reality, because I'm positive that if it happened in reality, shot in a robbery, that their two would change because they're going through grief. But here, I mean, I've only read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and even in those, there have been rare occurrences where Flash would try to put himself out there, be more friendly with Peter, like when he went to talk to Peter about, I don't know if it was Gwen Stacy or Liz Allen that he had a crush on, and he went and talked to Peter, and Peter's like, oh, man, you're just trying to mess with me again. I don't want to talk to you. And he blew him off. There's still even those times where Flash Thompson would still give him crap in school, and Peter would basically take that, because if he even gave a fight into anything remotely as a clue that he's Spider-Man, because if he's dodging all these attacks, then naturally someone's going to think, well, he's doing all this, Spider-Man does all this. So, two together, he's Spider-Man. So he would take that to protect his identity. In this film, I mean, I appreciate the realism that they were trying to have Flash be more sensitive to Peter, but I'm still thinking of Flash as the guy who gives Peter grief. What do you think?
Well, regarding the whole Flash thing, it's like they've never established in the film that they are friends. Like at the end of the film, he came up to him and he gave him, like a headlock noogie, but that's just because he jokes around with Peter. It's not like he completely hates his guts over everything. I mean, like even in the comics, there was a point where he started to back off from him and be like even just a little less aggressive towards him. That's what he did in this film, but I do see where you're coming from, though. I mean, Flash did learn to open up, like, even in the Ultimate Universe. There were times where they would have conversations, however brief. But, I think it's, like, one of those things that isn't going to matter much, because I don't know how much they're going to develop Flash in this film series. I don't think he's, like, people are saying that, oh, he's Peter Parker's best friend now, and I'm like, no, he's not. It's like they assume that, oh, he gives him this this headlock and he's smiling that they're best friends. I'm like, no, it's just the sheer joy of you giving a headlock to someone. That happens with everybody. You feel powerful.
Well,
yeah, go ahead. Actually, want to speak?
Well, I want to say first and foremost, Peter Parker's a genius, right? He is a genius in the comics, like a full-on. He's very intelligent, very smart.
Well, he's not like a, how do I say this? He's not like a genius in the level of, oh my god, this is freaking amazing. He's, I don't know. He's very smart for his age. That's what I'll say.
Because in the original series, in the original Sam Raimi films, he didn't seem all that intelligent. He seemed more like an idiot. And it's like, in those movies, it's like, oh yeah, he's a genius. We don't really want to put that in there, though. We just want to make him a moron. Here, he's actually a genius. He's actually smart. That's one thing I noticed. And another thing I want to give credit to are the camera angles. That was some of the best camera work I have seen in a film. Like,
oh my god.
wow.
The 3D of the movie, if you watch it in 3D and you see it, it's just, it just freaking works great. I definitely think that they learned a lot in the past couple of years, especially when it comes to cinematography, how to shoot a good movie, just everything, just how to shoot a good emotional scene, how to shoot a good action scene, just like a pan of the entire city. It's just, it's freaking awesome. That's why, like, as a film, this stands on its own even better than I'd say the other ones. I mean, because 1 and 2 as films, they were decent, but like, that's just it. This one as a film you could take seriously, like with The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is an excellent film on its own, even if you ignore all the nitpicks people have with the adaptations. So it's definitely good that comic book films are going down this route.
And another thing I want to bring up is that Gwen, what's her name? Gwen Stacy?
Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, Gwen Stacy. Yeah. She doesn't get captured, which I was like, thank you, God. Because when I saw Lizard Man open that cage and suddenly it was about to look like he was about to grab her, I was like, oh, fuck. She's going to get captured just like Mary Jane. And it's like, no, he doesn't. It's like, okay, finally, thank God someone doesn't capture her. I know in the other films, Mary Jane got captured every 5 seconds because they felt like capturing her.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about that moment where she's in Oscorp making the cure, and he finds her, and instead of grabbing her, well, he does go to grab her, but she outsmarts him by making this flamethrower, homemade, the hair. I don't know if it's hairspray, but it's a can of something, and it's a flammable and basically burns his hand, and he backs off. I like that she's not a ditzy, damsel in distress. That she's willing to fight back.
Yeah.
And, another thing I liked in the film was how Martin Sheen established his role as Uncle Ben, because he in the Sam Raimi film, I guess I didn't like Uncle Ben. I mean, he was a sympathetic character, but I mean, he had no balls, so to speak. When Peter mouthed off at his uncle, saying, "You're not my father," in the car, Uncle Ben just looks at him like he's heartbroken. But in this film, I mean, it's evolution. It starts out with him having a casual conversation, like, "That's your dad's briefcase." I won't bring up that you got hit, because your Aunt May will, be ruthless to whoever did that. And then it goes to, after what happened with him, that he's a little bit more, thanks to you for pulling this, I had to work all the time. Oh, you get to, and then it goes in person with, it's after home and phone call when he was working with Kirk Connors, and it's that classic, don't screw with Dad moment. The father's out front. He's like, I'm glad that your phone can work. Get your butt inside. Apologize to your aunt, and the aunt's like, you don't have to. Like, she's sympathetic to Peter because I mean, he knows. I mean, they both know his father's not in the picture. He's lost track of time, and she's like, it's okay. Peter doesn't have to apologize. And he's like, no, screw that. You tell her you're sorry. And I love that he had brass balls there, and it's like, yeah, you